Hello, everybody. Very nice to see you joining. We're just waiting for about 2 minutes until we start with our presentation so that people can settle in. So great to see more people joining. We're waiting just a little bit and then we'll start with the presentation. As you see, this call will be recorded, so you are all muted, and please open the chat and introduce yourself in the chat. Okay, I think we can start now. So we are very happy and very excited to see you all here today. This is the first of our information sessions about our new Climate Parent Fellowship. This session will be recorded and put up for further notice on our website. Please have a little patience with us, because now when we walk you through the presentation, you will hear a lot of information on a lot of slides. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat. We will answer them at the end of the presentation. So for now, I'm going to introduce the team, the brilliant team, as I can say, for these women that really made this fellowship, this opportunity for grassroots parent activists come to life. So the most important persons are Rowan and Jill. Rowan and Jill, please introduce yourself.
Rowan, Jill, do you want to go first? Oh, okay. Thanks, Agnes.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Agnes. Yeah, it's really exciting to be launching this. We've been working on this for a while, so we're really, really excited to be able to actually share this with the community. I'm Rowan, I'm in the UK, and I've been involved with Parents for Future for 2 years next week. It's the Parents for Future birthday coming up next week, pretty much. And I'll hand over to Jill.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Cubitt. I'm calling in from New York City. I'm a mother to a 7-year-old, and I've been doing parent-led kind of organizing, intergenerational organizing for the past 6 years through Dear Tomorrow Storytelling Project, and in the last couple of years through Our Kids Climate.
Thank you very much. Then we have the third, but also very valuable member of our team, Becky, please.
Hiya, I am Becky and I work for Our Kids Climate. I work on communications. I have 2 young kids, 7 and 5, and my introduction to parent climate work was through Mothers Rise Up. We organised a big march in May 2019 in London. I'm looking after that along with Agnes today. I'm just to note, I can see some of you are saying hello in the chat, all panelists. So can you make sure when you go into the chat, the toggle is all panelists and attendees, and then you'll be able to say hello, everyone. But thank you, that's me.
Yeah. And I'm the first one, the 4th member of the team. I'm Agnes. I'm a grassroots climate activist from Germany. I've been involved in parent activism since the rise of the Fridays for Future movement in Germany, because I have 2 Fridays for Future teenage activists at home. I will be the one who's responsible to answering all your questions. So if you're reaching out to the team, if you're reaching out to the email address, I will be the one who will answer them. And again, please don't hesitate to contact us. No question is too much. We really want to support you to apply to this fellowship. Okay. So this is the beginning of our presentation. What is the Climate Parent Fellowship? It is a 1-year program aimed to support parent-led, intergenerational and family-focused climate organization. It's a joint partnership between Our Kids Climate and Parents for Future Global. The program runs from April 21 till March 22. The application process is open now until March the 5th, 21. The goal of this fellowship is to support 8 fellows engaged in new or already existing climate work. At least half of the fellows selected will be from the Global South. So what is required of our fellows?
Could we go back 1 slide, Jill?
Who is eligible?
Sorry, guys. Keep going.
Yeah, just don't mention it. Who is eligible for to apply? All climate organizers, educators, leaders, social entrepreneurs, creators, volunteers that are working on parent-led, intergenerational, and family-focused climate organizing. This fellowship is for individual applications, not for group applications. The applicants can be from any country. The applicants can submit a new idea, an existing project or group, or multiple projects. For a new idea, please demonstrate past commitment to climate work. We are interested in applicants who are conversational, not necessarily fluent in English. All training will be in English for at least the pilot year. Applicants who need funding to continue or grow their work. So now I hand over to Rowan.
Thanks, Agnes. So what is required of fellows who take part in this fellowship? So we're looking for people to dedicate some of their time to advancing the project or group or idea that they're presenting to the fellowship. It doesn't come with a job description. The fellowship is intended to support you to keep doing the work that you're already doing. Fellows will be asked to participate in monthly fellows meetings and 1 fellowship retreat, which will be probably over a weekend or 2 days at some point. There won't be any travel required. Fellows will be asked to complete some surveys during the fellowship, which will help us to understand your needs and help us to understand the needs of the fellowship cohort, and to complete a short final report at the end of the fellowship. and fellows will be asked to contribute to fellowship communications, for example, profiles of fellows and of the fellowship, to be spokespersons, to write some blogs or op-eds or press releases, and to contribute some ideas about how to improve the fellowship for future cohorts. So importantly, there's not a huge amount of additional time required. There are some meetings, but this fellowship is intended to support people to do the work they are wanting to continue doing. And what do fellows receive? So fellows will receive a financial stipend, which the amount will depend on the country you're in, and Jill will explain a little bit more about that in a minute. They'll be part of a learning group of fellows, so a cohort, which will provide a supportive community. And I think that will be very beneficial to be able to connect with fellows who are working in different parts of the world on parent-led and family-focused climate work. There will be some individual communication support from Becky, who you just met, and some individual or small group mentoring that will depend on what specific needs individual fellows want support with. We have quite a limited budget for the mentoring. We would like to be able to provide a lot more mentoring, but in this first year, it will be a fairly limited amount.
So I'm going to take over the part. A lot of people have questions about what is the financial award. And I'm going to go through this a little bit slowly. There's some key points I really want everybody to think about as they're applying, and kind of what are the expectations for how much is the financial award. So the first thing to note is that the amount that you will get will be based on the country where you live. We're also going to max out the maximum amount that you can get is going to be $20,000 US. And we kind of expect that the $20,000 US it will be given to the equivalent people who are perhaps in the United States or in the EU or in kind of the global north, where you know, where salaries are higher and where expenses are higher. We want everybody to think about this as a part-time stipend. So this is not equivalent to a salary. If we think about the salary, for example, in the US, the average salary in the US is approximately $52,000 US. And what we're going to be giving for this is $20,000. So we want people to think about this as part-time, and we're estimating it's going to be about a day and a half or 2 days a week of work. In the original proposals and how we want to grow the program, eventually we want to be able to offer part-time support and full-time support for people. But at this point in our first year, we're only able to offer the part-time fellowship. And so we want people to think about it as it's a couple of days of work and it's not meant to support an entire salary. Again, it will be prorated by country. And so I did want to provide an example here. And I mentioned earlier that if we think about, so I'm in the US, so if we think about the US context, the average salary is $52,000. And so a $20,000 fellowship is about 2/5. It's slightly less than 2/5 of a full-time salary. So then if you apply kind of this mathematic equation to your own country, what we'll be doing is looking country to country at what is the average salary or what is the median salary where people live, and then we'll be making an estimate or creating an amount. And so I don't want to, at this point, we're not necessarily going to be saying like, if you're in this country, this is exactly how much, but we want to give everybody kind of an estimate of what to expect. And so in this example, if your country's average salary is $25,000 US equivalent, then your fellowship award would be approximately $10,000. And I included a range here because I think in the end, we might have some negotiations, or we might have to make some adjustments based on other factors and cost of living factors. The second really, really important financial piece that I want everybody to be clear on is that this is considered to be income for people. So it's just like a job. It's not a budget that you would then turn around and spend on $10,000 worth of goods and materials that you want to buy for your project. It's really meant to help people in their financial need. As we know, many people are volunteering or they are working without very much pay on their work. And this is meant to help supplement, help support people in their work. So because it is given kind of in this fellowship award, it's more of a, think of it more like income that you would get in a salary. And so it is subject to national taxation. You will be getting, if you are selected, the fellows will be getting the money, and we are due to international law, we will not be reducing that amount or taking the taxation out. And so people will be getting the financial award, and then they will be responsible for paying whatever national level taxes are required. So this is I think a lot of people want to know, like, does my project fit? Am I a good candidate? And so we wanted to say, like, what is the criteria for being selected? And this is the criteria that we are looking at throughout the entire process. And we will talk a little bit more about what that process is, but we want you to really think about, this is the criteria. So the first piece is that we're looking for people who are demonstrating leadership in kind of one or more of these three areas. One is parent-led organizing, another is intergenerational organizing, and a third is family-focused climate organizing. And many of you are doing all of that, but some people might only see themselves in one of these categories or two of these categories. And we want to have this very kind of broad in terms of how we think about organizing. I do want to make one additional point about leadership. You don't have to have a title or have like a formal leadership role. We think many people who are organizers and volunteers are leaders within their organizations. So we want to think about leadership as very broadly defined. Are you helping to move the work? Do people rely on you to get stuff done? Do you work well with others? Like, those are the kind of leadership qualities we're looking for. The second criteria is, are you committed to this work and to the parent movement or the broader climate movement? So do you have a track record? Have you been doing this work? If you're choosing to do a new project, like you would like to create a new organization, like a new parent group, you need to also be able to demonstrate you have a commitment to this work with a past project. And we'll get into that a little bit more probably in the Q&A. Third, we want people who are highly collaborative, people who work well with others. The fourth criteria is that you're creative, you try new things, you're entrepreneurial, you're innovative, you have courage to do new things. And I think here you don't have to always be successful, but we're looking for people who are trying out new ideas, even if they don't work out. The fifth thing is that is really important, is that we are only going to be giving fellowships to people or people who are in groups or projects that really do need the support. And what do we mean by this? What we mean is, if your group is volunteer led, or there's a part-time staff person or only a couple of staff, you would qualify. But if you're in a big NGO, a big organization that has multiple people working in this area, you probably would not qualify. And so we do also want to let people know, maybe people who are better resourced, to really also think about encouraging other people to apply and recommending other people and being willing to be a reference. This we wanted to show, and I'm just going to read a little bit through this, but because again, we've gone through what do we mean by parent work. The first is that we have a very broad understanding of tactics and strategies. So we're looking for any group, project, organization, or idea that's parent-led, intergenerational, and or family-focused, working around climate engagement. And we are really open to all different kinds of ideas and strategies. So we are looking for people who are helping to build national groups, local groups, various campaigns, or video. You could be doing a blog. You could be writing a book. You have a legal strategy, a corporate strategy. You could be working on solar in a schools campaign, working on educational curriculum for children, and that also involves parents, or that brings that intergenerational component. So we are really, really open. There is no one solution that we are supporting. We want you to bring different ideas from different locations and different ways of working. The last thing on the slide is that, again, you can apply with an existing project. You don't need a new project. If you have an existing project, you can apply with it. You can apply with a new project, or you can apply if you have multiple roles in different projects. Say you don't just work on one thing, but you're working at a local group that's also connected to the national group, that's also connected to the broader climate justice movement. You can apply with your roles in multiple locations. In order to apply, this is the site that it is a secure site where you would be applying. You can find the link both here. You can also find the link on the Parents for Future Global website and the Our Kids Climate website. The application, if you go to it, it has kind of three main components. The second component is the biggest, but the three main components are: one, we need to know information about you. The middle part is there are 7 short answer questions, and you really need to please pay attention to the word limit. And then the last part is that we are asking for 2 references. And with the references, we would like you need to think about who you want to be your references and contact them, let them know, and ask them before you put them down. References will only be contacted if you make it through kind of into the finalist stage. One thing that we cannot emphasize enough is that the secure portal does not allow people to save their application. So we really, really highly recommend the following. Is to take the questions and put them in a Word document or another document, or write them down on paper, however you want to write it. Work on your answers. And then when you're ready, put them all in at the same time and apply. If you attempt to write half of it and move away, and we know some people have issues with internet and or like childcare, you get called away to deal with your kid or your kid's school, and you come back and it's not there, it will be lost. So we really highly recommend that you work on it on a separate document and you save that document for your records. The application deadline is March 5th, 2021 at 2300 UTC, which is also 11 p.m. UTC. If you run into a technical problem or something comes up in your life and you need more time, please email us. And the email is to Agnes, and she will be answering that email. Pass it back to Rowan.
Thanks, Jill. So as Jill said, the applications will close on March 5th with, if necessary, a small amount of flexibility, but that's when we're asking applications to be submitted. The applications will then be reviewed and scored based on all of the criteria. So Jill talked through the selection criteria that we're using: the leadership, commitment, collaboration, creativity and courage, and financial need. So we will score all of the applications against those 5 criteria. And the full details of those criteria are on the websites. So we've kind of set out exactly what those criteria are going to be on both the Our Kids Climate and the Parents for Future Global websites. Each application will be reviewed by 2 people. And then we will try to shortlist down to 15 finalists. And those 15 finalists, we will re-review all of the applications and we will interview those 15 finalists. And at that stage, references will be contacted. We're estimating that we will have 8 fellows selected, with at least half from the Global South. There's a slight, there might be some slight variation in that, but we are estimating that 8 will be the final number of fellows selected. The finalists will be interviewed by a selection panel. So we will have 5 people who will be on a selection committee. Jill and I are both part of that selection process. And then we will have 3 other people who will be part of that selection process, that some of whom will be within the parent climate movements and some of whom are not. But if there's people that are being interviewed that Jill and I know well, we will not be part of the decision making. So it's not going to be that we're influencing the decision making for people that we work closely with. We all step outside decision making on people that we know well. And the same for anybody else that's connected with any applicants. Of the 15 finalists, 8 we will hope to be giving fellowships to, and the 7 people that are not able to get the fellowships but that have been shortlisted and interviewed will be eligible for a $5,000 sub-grant from Our Kids Climate. That is a little bit different to the fellowship in that that funding would be for the work of the group that that person is part of, rather than to pay a stipend. But that will be, there'll be a slightly separate process on that at that stage that Jill will be leading people through. So our recommendations, firstly, is apply. Please apply. We're really excited to be sharing this and really looking forward to seeing some of the applications. We know that there are a lot of people doing really fantastic work across this community. And we also know that there are a lot of people that need some support to be able to keep doing this work. We see financial need as just one component of that, but that hopefully giving people some financial support will enable them to spend more time on this work. And that's the important thing, that we want people to be able to grow this piece of parent climate work, because we believe strongly in the potential of making some change through this work. We would also really like you to help us encourage other people to apply. Making sure that we get diverse applications is really important for the success of this fellowship. So if you know other people who you think might make really good fellows, then we would be really grateful if you can share this with other people. And it will really help us to understand the financial need across the parent climate community, seeing the applications that we get in. We are hoping to be able to expand this fellowship next year. As Jill said, we'd like to be able to offer full-time fellowship support. We'd like to be able to offer more fellowships. But this is being seen as very much as a pilot, just a 1-year fellowship and as a pilot. And that's why we'll be asking this cohort to help us shape future fellowships. But seeing what level of applications we get and what the financial need is across this network will really help us in conversations with funders so that we can expand this work. Please apply early. Please don't wait until the last day. I know that's all too easy to do. I'm very much guilty of last-minute funding applications, but please do apply early as much as possible. We hope it's not going to take you too long to fill in this application form. We've tried to design it to make it as simple as possible, but to give us enough information to be able to really understand the work different people are doing. We hope it won't take more than 2 or 3 hours to fill in. And importantly, we're looking for strong candidates, not perfect applications. Please don't worry too much about your English. I know that it's very easy to feel shy that your English is not perfect or not good enough to fill in an application. We're not going to be judging the applications based on the English that is in the application. We need to understand the content, and we do need applicants to have some level of English, because the training that's provided for the first year will be in English, but it doesn't have to be grammatically accurate. So please apply even if you have some concerns about your English. Please do talk to your referees before you send in your application. And as Jill said, we're going to re-emphasize this. Please do your work on a separate document and save it, because the application online must be done in one sitting. We've provided the questions in a separate document, I think it's in a PDF document on both of the websites, the Our Kids Climate website and the Parents for Future Global website. So there is a document there that you'll be able to save separately or print and then use that as a reference point for preparing your answers. But we would be very sad if people struggle and put their applications into the online portal and then for some internet connectivity reason or similar, it is lost. So please do bear that in mind when you're working on your application. You will receive a confirmation email once you've submitted your application. That's not something that you'll get immediately. So that's going to take around 2 business days to get that. But if after several days you've not received anything confirming that we've received your application, then do please reach out to us with the email address that we've given you, and we'll give that again. So the groups behind this fellowship, for anyone that's not met us previously, there's descriptions there of Our Kids Climate, which is the group that Jill co-leads, and Parents for Future Global, which is a group that I'm involved with. We work very closely together, and this project has been an important project in bringing these 2 networks together. But if you've got any questions about either of those networks, then do let us know in the Q&A that's coming up. And who's behind this in terms of funding? We've had funding from two funders for this pilot fellowship, and they're named at the bottom there. So the Equation Campaign and the Urban Movement Innovation Fund are the funders for this pilot project. And we're very grateful to them for supporting this.
Yes, thank you very much.
Over to Agnes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rowan and Jill, and thank you very much for bearing with us and listening to this whole bunch of information. There have only been some questions in the chat. Again, I encourage everybody to ask questions, or if you come up with a question later, please reach out to us through the email address. There has been now one little question about the application process that goes to Jill. It's very simple. If we once have started the survey, the application, and we are interrupted, would it be possible to restart it again, or do we only have one try?
Yes, that's a good question. So when you work on the application, there are a bunch of fields you need to fill out. First, your name, then the 7 short answers, then your references, and then you need to sign your name, and then you'll need to hit submit. So if you start the application and you work on the application and you don't hit submit, you will not be applying. That won't be an application. It's only when you feel like you've completed and you hit the submit button that it will go into our secure portal, and then we'll have a chance to read it and review it. So I think if you work on it and you leave, the danger is that if you come back, it won't be there on your screen. And so what we're highly, highly recommending is that you take the questions, you put them, open another document, and you cut and paste them into another document, and then you work on them in its entirety. And then when you're ready to submit, you take question number 1 and put in question number 1, question number 2, put in question number 2, so that the whole filling out process only takes about 10 minutes, and then you hit submit. If you do your application and you hit submit, and then in a week later you say, oh, I want to update it or want to change it, I think, but I'm not positive, and you can probably submit it again. But I recommend that you really just work on it offline, and then you apply in one sitting, and then you do the official submit. If you have problems with your submission, you can email us. We're going to cut it off at that hour, like that is said, but we want people to apply. So if you have an issue, there will be some room for us to read it separately, but you do need to save what you have.
Can I just add to that, that it's not an application portal that you can only access once. So if you access it and then you're not able to complete it, as Jill said, you can come back to that website. It's not that there's a sort of process for accessing it and you only have one chance to access it. It's that we need to make sure that you're actually submitting it with all of the questions in place.
Thank you very much, Jill and Rowan. We hope that this could be clarified. Becky already answered one question in the chat, but I think it's important that we again stress this. On our website, there is a PDF with all the questions that we are going to ask in the application. So if you're curious about, or if you're just considering to applicate, just have a look at this PDF and it will show you all the questions you need to answer to applicate. And you should work with this PDF, with these questions beforehand, before you actually hit the applicate button. There has been a suggestion from Leanne from Parents for Future. Thank you very much, Leanne. We will consider this in the team. Leanne suggested that we might put up a dummy application so that people get an idea what kind of answers we are awaiting. Yeah, we have already considered, if need be, if we are doing kind of an open hour for people and walk them through the application so that they can just join us for an informal call and we can help them to answer the questions. But we will consider both options to help you with your applications. Then there is another very good question. What if I'm new to parent climate work and I want to start a new group? Would I be an eligible candidate?
You want me to attempt to answer that?
Go for it.
I think it's a case by case. So I would highly encourage you to apply because we want to know kind of where there is demand. So I think if you are, so people who are applying with a new organization or a new group or a new idea, I think put that idea is important to talk about. But then I think it's also important in the criteria, like what we're looking for is also people who have demonstrated a commitment to climate organizing, climate justice work, parent organizing. So I think, or other social justice organizing. So I think it's really important. You'll have to really think about like how to do the second part, which is how to think about your commitment and your connections and the collaboration piece. But I think it's totally fine. And we are encouraging people, it's totally great to apply with a new idea. I mean, sorry, a new idea, new group, new project. And we're kind of using those terms interchangeably.
Thank you very much. And if some of your questions haven't been clarified with our answers, please notify this in the chat, please. So, and now we have a very interesting and very good question. Perhaps the last question is, when you say Global South, what exactly do you mean by it? Because we said that half of the candidates will be from the Global South.
Yeah, that's a good question. And we haven't clearly defined exactly what we mean by Global South, but our intention with that stipulation is that we want to make sure that these fellowships are not all going to Europe and to North America and to Australia, Australasia, New Zealand, countries where there is the potential for groups to get more funding, maybe. We're very aware that there's lots of groups in those countries that are also unfunded. But we want to make sure that this fellowship cohort is as diverse as possible. And we recognise the really significant importance of increasing climate activism and particularly intergenerational and family climate activism in a wide range of countries. So we haven't sort of said exactly these countries would be in the 4 that might get the Global North and these countries are the 4 that might get Global South, but we will be selecting a cohort to make sure that this is diverse and to make sure that there's a range of countries that are able to access this opportunity.
I will just add that when we're saying at least half will come from the Global South. So that means for us, that means half or more. So it could be 4, if it's 8, which we're not exactly sure, but if it's 8, which is like the number we're aiming for, it might be 4 and 4. It could be 2 and 6. It could, so there is some range there. But we are committed, we are really committed to diversifying the climate movement, diversifying the leadership, and providing space for people to connect across many different kinds of locations. Anyway, so I think we want everybody to apply because we don't know who will be selected, but we do have that commitment.
And I think it's important that we say that we are very interested to support candidates from the indigenous communities. So this would be, for example, from the communities in North America and Australia. So these people would technically not be from the Global South, but they would consider candidates from them. There has been another question about the references, if they need to be in English. Could you please clarify what you think, what the reference is? And yeah.
Yeah, that's important. So we're not asking people to prepare references in advance. We don't need people to submit something that's already written as a reference. We're asking people to name people that we can contact for a reference. So if you are selected for the shortlist and for interview, then we would reach out to those people and ask them to tell us a little bit about what they understand of your work. So it's a good question whether that has to be somebody that speaks English. I think that's something for us to think about a little bit more. Within the team, we haven't got that many languages that we would be able to converse in. So it would certainly help us if it's somebody that could speak English. But if you have people that don't speak any English that you would like to be a referee, then maybe reach out to us on that. But don't ask for people to prepare something in advance.
And there is another question also referring to references. When one does very little work on the local level and have limited references, what do you suggest in this case?
So I think, again, that's probably speaking to the fact that we're trying to understand people's commitment to this work. So if you're not working at a local level, but you are working at a national level or an international level, then if somebody is able to tell us or would be able to tell us a little more about your work at any of those levels, then that's absolutely fine. It doesn't have to be telling us about a particular piece of work. But we just want to be able to reach out to somebody else who would be able to give us some more information about your work if you're shortlisted for interview.
I would add on the references. I think because I filled out a lot of these applications and done, applied for a number of things, and I think sometimes there's a tendency to try and choose someone who is well known or has a name, but like only a little bit. That's not what we're interested in. We want to know somebody that you've collaborated with or worked on a project with that can say, yes, you try new things, you're collaborative, you are great to work with, you're open. We want people to have a strong recommendation, and it doesn't matter like exactly who that person is. So if you think about who are the people that you are that are helping to organize with you, who like within your organization, outside of your organization, in your local community groups, or if you're at the national level, what other climate justice groups are you working with, or are you doing collaborations between the local and the national, or between the national and international? So it's really important, I think, to choose people who really do know you and know the work, the great organizing work you're doing.
Yes, thank you very much, Jill and Rowan. I hope we could clarify this question. So right now there are no other questions in the chat. So if you still want to ask something.
I can see one or two more.
Yeah, there's a couple that we haven't got to. There was one about the word limit. The question one requires a lot of details, such as requesting the who, what, when, and how for people working on multiple projects and campaigns. It will be really tough to stay within 250 word limit. So any advice on that?
We've really,
Yeah.
Jill, go for it.
Yeah, we're not looking for a perfect answer from anybody. So we don't need you to really, we don't want you to spend time really thinking about how am I going to write this sentence and how am I going to write this next sentence. We want you to really just say exactly what you're doing. Those sub questions, those extra questions, I think we're like who, what, when, how, those are to help guide you. So if you can't answer all of them, that's okay. So I think, you know, if you have one project you're working on, those questions will help guide you. If you have multiple projects that you're working on, I think you just tell us about, you know, list the 4 projects you're working on, or the 2 projects, or the 10 projects. I have no idea how many. And then maybe focus on 1 or 2 of them with like a little bit more detail. But you don't have to answer every single question for every single project. That's one. The second part is you need to stick within the word limit. If people we could run out of space and don't get to the most important part, then we won't know what the most important work you're doing. So like the questions are really a guide to kind of help you, but if you miss some of them, they're fine. The last part I would say is put the most important stuff first.
Yeah.
That question is very much just to help us understand who you are and what your work is. That's the kind of paint us a picture of your work so we can get to know you a little bit question.
Sarah, so there's another question coming back to the applications, if group applications are possible.
Yeah, so that's important to emphasize that this fellowship is for individuals. So individuals will have the support through this fellowship, and this is to pay for people's time to work on this. So this is not something that you apply for as a group. This is something that you apply for as an individual that's engaging on this work. And that's how this fellowship is set up, is to support people's time so that they're able to engage on this work. We know that there are lots of groups that are also looking for support and looking for many of which are trying to raise funding, but this particular program is for individual support.
I just want to add to that it's okay if there are multiple people from the same group applying. So the group, if you're in a group and there's 5 people that are really interested in this, 5 people can apply, and then we'll have to kind of work through the details of that. But you don't have to nominate one person to be the representative to do the work, or to do the application. You can, multiple people from an organization can apply. I would say the potential benefit of putting in an application, especially if you're thinking like in the group sense, is that you, instead of becoming a fellow, you might be selected for a sub-grant, and for your group to get one of those $5,000 sub-grants. So we do highly recommend that people apply, and that you can have multiple people from an organization or group apply.
Thank you very much. We have also now 2 questions from Nairobi. The first is, after the application has closed on the 5th of March, how long will the applicants have to wait to get to results?
So the selection process is going to run through March. So we're hoping to have the fellows selected at the beginning of April. Might be the second week of April because we pushed the deadline slightly. But we're hoping that we'll be able to let people know if they've been shortlisted. I'm hoping kind of 2 to 3 weeks after the applications close. But the related question there, how many applications are we expecting to receive? We have no idea. We're not sure, and we're slightly nervous because we want to get lots of applications, and we're slightly nervous because we are going to have to review lots of applications. But it's a small team that's working on this at the moment. We're really excited to see what level of applications we receive, and we're going to do our best to make the process for selecting them as quick as possible so that people are not left hanging. You will hear from us one way or the other about whether you've been shortlisted.
Thank you very much, Rowan. So I think this was also a very important question, and to stress that we are a small team and this is the pilot year. And we really hope that we can offer this fellowship to you also next year. But that will, of course, depend on the success of this year. Okay, so any other question, then please ask them now in the chat. Otherwise, I would ask our panelists if talking through all this, you might want to add something, a remark, perhaps?
So I'll just add that some of these questions that have come up, we will add to the frequently asked questions documents that are linked to on both websites. Those are documents that we'll try to keep updated with some of the key questions that are coming up. And do please look at the information that's on the website. This will also be recorded, is being recorded, and will be put on the website. So if you know of other people who are interested in applying, then they will be able to watch this. We've got 2 more sessions similar to this planned, one later this week and one in 2 weeks' time at different time zones to try and make that accessible. So do please also encourage people to join those, but the content will be the same as this, so you don't have to join more than one.
I would just close, if there's no more questions, I would just close with really encouraging people to apply. You don't need to spend a lot of time on the application. You know, you could do it in an hour, maybe we're saying at the most kind of 2 to 3 hours to work on the application. So you don't need to spend a lot of time editing and re-editing. Just sit down, answer the question to the best of your ability, save it, and then add it to the application, to the secure portal. I think Rowan had already mentioned it's really, really important for us, for the success of this program, to be able to demonstrate that there is a lot of really interesting work out there and a lot of interesting work that is not getting paid in any capacity. So if you are doing volunteer-led work, or your organization or group does not have enough staffing, or you want to start a new project and you don't have money to do that, please apply. The last thing I would say is that we know that there's going to be a lot of people applying to this, or we hope there's going to be a lot of people applying to this. We know that many people who apply will be qualified and could be fellows, and some people will not be, some very, very qualified people will not be selected. But we hope that you still join this journey with us, because we are trying to build this project over the next couple of years. And so we're hoping that if people who apply and don't get it, we'll have the opportunity to do this project in future years.
We're also hoping that some of the learnings from this fellowship we'll be able to share with the wider community. So it may be that as the fellowship progresses, there will be some trainings that we provide that are for the whole parent climate community, not just for the fellowship cohort, but for now we're just focusing on the applications process. But please apply. We're excited to see applications coming in. We've had one already.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rowan, Jill, and also Becky, for all the information and the patience that you answered the questions. And we hope that we have encouraged you to ask more questions. And we really do hope that we have encouraged you to apply. So we hope to hear from you or to see your application soon. Thank you very much. and have a good
Thank you
day.
for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.